I'm fascinated about the power of clarity, the power of vision, and the power of what I call realistic, clearly defined expectations when it has to do with relationships, when it has to do with love, when it has to do with marriages, because of the incredible difference that they make in the outcome of relationships and of marriages. And so today on Conversations with Single, I want to quickly share a couple of important thoughts that I believe will be very beneficial to singles all over the world. Now listen, available data show that for every dozen wedded couple, 6 of those marriages end in divorce. 4 of those marriages stay on deck, the couples stay on deck just because of the kids, for the sake of family, for the sake of their faith, but they are frustrated and unhappy. Only 2 remain happy ever after. For every dozen marriage, 6 in divorce for the sake of their faith. What with the volume of marriages that are crashing on a daily basis, why does it seem like more people are getting into marriages unadvisedly? Why does it seem to me that many people are still going into marriage spaces without answering very important questions? And then at the end of the day, what you hear is, I don't even know how I got involved in this, or this is the greatest mistake of my life. Someone said that we should go back and take a look at how our parents went about marriage, for which reason they think there must be a way our parents 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 40 years ago, there must be a way they went about marriage that made marriages in that day and time to turn out better than they do now. Great idea, but I have my reservations about those kind of thoughts. Why do I have my reservations? Number one, at the time my father got married to my mother, my father was about 24 years older than my mother. My mother was not more than 18 years, and he got married to my mother. At the time, you could say my father was doing well in his career. You could say my father was accomplished. He had a stable career. He was employed gainfully employed, of course. And so you had a situation where whatever she became eventually was directly, to a large extent, a product of the making, of the contribution of my father. She had hardly discovered herself. She had hardly carved a path for herself in life. I'm very sure her mother must have told her, hey, when you get there, whatsoever it tells you to do, just do it. The probability is that because my mother had hardly known herself, had hardly found herself, had hardly developed an identity of her own, and probably because if she ever became anything in life, all her schooling, education, everything was the making of my father. So it makes it a lot easier for my mother to do whatsoever he tells her to do. It was a lot easier for my mother to do whatsoever her mother had told her to do when she gets married to my father. That is profound. Move down into the future. Today, you do not always have a situation where a guy is getting married to a lady that will depend on him to get trained. A lot of the times, people get married to ladies who are already graduates. People get married to ladies who have carved a niche for themselves, who are pursuing their career and probably doing very well. A lot of the times, guys get married to ladies who trained themselves in school, who probably, because they're first daughters, they trained their siblings. You are getting married to a lady who has been fending for herself, who has been doing a lot for herself, who has been a leader by herself, who has been doing a lot of things independently all the while. And so you do not have a situation where you get married to this lady and because you trained her and because everything she became in life was your own making, and then you can just pull the shots, decide what happens. Whatever you say is final. She doesn't have a mind of her own. She doesn't have an opinion of her own. Whatsoever you say is what happens. Listen to me, that's not likely to happen in our day and time. And so when you say to them, go check it out how our parents got married and how they did marriage, which was probably responsible for their marriages lasting 40 years, 20 years, 30 years, the narrative, the circumstances are not always the same. And so if you're going to get married to a lady that is basically independent, a lady that has been taking responsibilities for herself, a lady that is aware, enlightened, educated, a go-getter like most of us want, somebody that is a confident lady, entrepreneur, somebody that is just a leader all by herself, then you cannot expect things to work out the way it worked out for our parents. The narrative is going to be different. It means that now that you're going to get into a relationship with a lady that has already created a vision, created her dreams, her plans, what it is that she wants to be, where she wants to get to in the next 3 years, in the next 4 years, in the next 5 years, the narrative is going to be different. I think that much of what we are dealing with today is that we have failed to painstakingly study what is making those who are failing to fail, who fail to do that. And unless we take the time to study how did they start their relationship? Why are they struggling? Why all the confusion? If you don't take time, and a lot of the time you talk to them single people and they have all kinds of ideas in their minds about what it is they want to do, how they want to go about it. And then in my meetings, I try to take data, statistics, survey, and I'm like, how many of you have read books on relationships in the last 12 months? Nothing. How many of you are doing a study, a research? What do we need to do differently? If in our day and time, 50% of marriages are ending in divorce, what should we do differently to be able to get a difference in outcome? It is stupid to maintain cause of action and expect difference in outcome. It's not possible. You can't keep doing what all them people are doing and expect an outcome that will be different, an outcome that will be different from what the outcome is. It's not going to work that way. And so for me, ignorance and selfishness is the primary reason why marriages are collapsing by the day. Ignorance, the degree of ignorance, the degree of self-centeredness is mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. I therefore recommend that we must go back to clearly defined agreements that are based on realistic expectations if we want to get it right. Clearly defined visions and agreements based on very realistic expectations. How in the world, in our day and time, are you going to go into a relationship and you've not sat down to discuss with your partner, whether you're the guy, whether you're the lady, you've not sat down to discuss with your partner about what their expectations are, what their expectations are when it comes to what are their family expectations, what are their sexual expectations, What are their expectations when it has to do with finance? When it has to do how are you guys going to deal with bills? How are you guys going to deal with debt? What is their debt profile? What is their credit profile? How do you go into a relationship that is as sensitive as marriage is without sitting down to discuss about the history? You know, a lot of the times you talk about this stuff and people are like, how would you talk about the past going forward? Excuse me, how do you intend not to repeat the past without talking about the past? How do you do that? No, how are you going to do that? A lot of people and a lot of marriages are truncated due to childhood traumas of individuals who have not addressed the traumas that they had to deal with, who have not been able to deal with pain, with abuse, with addictions, with all kinds of things that happened to them in their past. A child grows up in a family setting where his father abuses, domestic violence was at the peak. And now you assume that as he goes into his future, his mind is not going to play out and replay all the garbage and the debris that has been trapped in his past. And all them past has not been addressed and dealt with. And now you said, how do you go forward looking back? Excuse me. If we forget the past, we are doomed to repeat it. We must address the past, not to repeat the past. We're not addressing the past to remain in the past, because if we remain in the past, we aren't going to go forward. But we can't ignore the past and not repeat the past. How do you go into a lifetime relationship without visiting the mental history of your partner? And when these things happen, sit them down. A lot of the people who talk about childhood this is not what I bargained for. Sit them down. Find out what they bargained for. You'll be shocked to your teeth that they really bargained for nothing. A lot of us bargain for nothing. People don't sit down to discuss their bucket list. They don't discuss mental health history. They don't discuss careers and education. They don't discuss political views. They don't discuss anything. All people talk about is love, sex. A lot of people don't even take the time painstakingly to hold conversations about sex. And then we just jump into relationships. And then when you try to get people to sit down to talk, people avoid the talk because every time they try to do the talk, it ends in a fight, it ends in a quarrel, it ends in all kinds of things. So the best thing people think they can do is to avoid the talk. Excuse me. I have so much to say, but let me say this. When the Bible says two people cannot work together unless they be agreed, you can't mess with that fundamental provision of Scripture and make progress in relationships. It's not possible. And can I suggest two people working together to agree is beyond, please marry me. Oh, yes, I agree. No, they're two different things. No, they're two different things. Accepting a proposal by itself is not an agreement. It's not the kind of agreement that the Bible is talking about. It's beyond that. You guys have to sit down, take the time to program the future, and plan how you intend to navigate it. Otherwise, otherwise, you are going to get into the relationship proper, and things are going to be cropping up on a daily basis. And you're going to continue to sing the song, "This is not what I bargained for." If you are not going to have a lot of the things you didn't bargain for showing up, I am suggesting that you take the time to bargain for what it is that you want. If you don't do that, your relationship is going to end as a painful experience. And so, all them singles out there, my recommendation, sit down and talk. My recommendation, sit down and hold conversations about the things that terrify you, about your fears, about your concerns. Any relationship in which you have to hold back from talking about certain things in order not to be misunderstood is already a red flag. Sit down and talk about whatever you have to talk about.